the proceedings? Okay. Okay, good evening, everyone. Let's see, it is May 29th, 2025. It's 6 p.m. And I welcome you to tonight's public hearing. My name is Jim Mazzocco. I'm the zoning examiner for the city of Tucson. We have one case scheduled for the public hearing tonight. And I'll give the name later on. Let's see, as a zoning examiner, a little bit of background on the zoning examiner role. As zoning examiner, I conduct rezoning hearings on behalf of the mayor and council and make findings of fact, which I put into a written report along with my recommendations, which I send to the mayor and council for their consideration and for their final decision. My reports will be based on the information submitted to me, which includes the rezoning application, or in the case of a special exception, I won't go into that. The staff report or the staff report given by the staff, and all written approvals and protests, all correspondence and testimony given at tonight's public hearing. I'll also include in the record all documents submitted to me up to the close of the public hearing. Tonight's proceedings are being recorded. When I call on you to testify, please speak clearly into the microphone podium there and begin your testimony by stating your name and address for the record. I will complete, going on with my role for rezoning cases, I will complete a preliminary report within 5 working days for the public hearing after the public hearing is closed. I will prepare a final report, which will be issued 2 weeks after the public hearing is closed. If you'd like to receive any of my recommendations or report, and you're not listed as a party on the case, or in a particular case you want to see, you can send an email to Tucson Rezoning at tucsonaz.gov, or call the City of Tucson's Planning and Development Services Department. Copies will also be available from the Planning and Development Services Department website. That's where most people find the information. All of these reports, my recommendation on the final reports on the rezoning will be sent to mayor and council at the scheduled public hearing on this case. The mayor and council will then vote on the matter based on my recommendations and along with other factors that they may take into consideration. So here's how tonight's public hearing will work. First, the Planning and Development Services representative, John Bill, sitting to my right, will give a brief presentation on the case. Then I'll ask the applicant if she wishes to make a statement or give testimony. After the applicant presentation, I'll call on those who submitted speaker requests. I believe there's cards at the podium. If you want to speak, you'd fill it out and then I would call your name. So others can come up and speak. And if you didn't fill out one and you want to come up and speak, we can deal with that. I'll then open it up to anyone else, as I just mentioned. Then after the public testimony, I'll offer the applicant the opportunity to address any points that have been raised and to give a closing statement. I'll then close the public hearing for that particular case. So before I begin, for those who wish to speak, I'd like to swear you in, and what I request is you stand up and show that you're going to speak. And we don't have that statement. You swear to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Thank you. Okay. With that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Bill, and he'll give a brief staff report.
This is a request by the Planning Center on behalf of the City of Tucson for a major change to the Los Reales pad, pad 14. The proposed change will add additional parcels to the pad boundary, reflect the current conditions of the site and surrounding area. The proposal also streamlines pad districts to reflect the vision of the Los Reales Sustainability Campus and establish conceptual activity areas within the campus district. These areas extend within the updated pad boundaries. It also makes various changes to development regulations within the pad. The proposed update would also change the name of the Los Reales pad to the Los Reales Sustainability Campus Pad. The Los Reales pad is approximately 1,094-acre campus located between Swan Road and I-10, extending approximately 1.25 miles south of Los Reales Road. The modification request would add approximately 55 acres to the pad area. The consultant applicant held a neighborhood meeting on November 12th, 2024 to discuss the proposed amendment to the Los Reales pad. A second neighborhood meeting was noticed and scheduled for March 26, 2025, again at Loffer Middle School. No members of the public attended, and after 15 minutes, the meeting was concluded. In 2021, the Los Reales landfill was renamed the Los Reales Sustainability Campus, and a strategy was devised setting forth very specific goals to optimize the sustainability operations of the landfill, maximize economic development opportunities, and ultimately shift the perspective of the landfill from not only being a waste management facility, but also a recreation and a community open space asset. In order to achieve this, the pad is being modified. And these following changes, some of these changes are to the pad development regulations are proposed reflecting provisions of the Unified Development Code as opposed to the Land Use Code. Additional permitted uses are included, such as composting, which is previously prohibited. Maximum building heights are increased from 40 feet to 140 feet within the Sustainability Campus District to align with the underlying zoning and surrounding industrial zone properties, and to encompass the height of the landfill, methane flare, and other potential equipment. Maximum building heights in the open space and recreation district were reduced from 40 feet to 30 feet. Perimeter yard standards were established, as well as revisions to landscape border and screening standards to more closely align with the UDC and in review capital improvement projects. Provisions for trails within open space and landscape borders were added. The pad site inventory is revised to include parcels added to the pad and to reflect changes to the site and surrounding area. It also streamlines the pad districts. The Community Resource Center district is translated into two new districts, Community Resources Activity Areas and Eco Commerce Activity Areas. Open Space District becomes the Open Space Plus Recreation District, containing areas providing for the preservation of critical floodplains and riparian habitat with active, passive recreation provisions. This district also provides a substantial buffer from landfill and waste reclamation operations while providing recreation facilities, including natural trails, multi-use paths, and a large community recreation area. The applicant's request increases the size of the pad area consistent with plan policy while also providing development restriction zones around existing residential and civic uses. The proposed major change to the Los Reales pad is consistent with and supported by the policy direction provided by Plan Tucson and the Rincon Southeast Subregional Plan and meet the intent of the Los Reales pad. Approval of the pad change is appropriate. And as of today's date, there have been 1 approval and 4 protests. One of the protests is outside the 150-foot notice area, and 3 are within the 150-foot notice area. That includes staff's report.
And of course, I'm a little bit rusty at this, so I should have said the name of the case at the beginning. And the name of the case is a rezoning. It's TP-MOD-0924-50 with a 9, Los Reales pad major change. That was the name of the case, and I should have said that at the beginning, but now I've said it for the record. And thank you, John, for your report. John, I have a question. I realize that the applicant is representing the city. I was just curious, Who's initiating this? Is this the department, the city manager, the mayor and council? You know who's
But I
initiating?
understand it would be the city of Tucson that is initiating it with the environmental services as the department overseeing the project. But
Is
you could
that-
ask the applicant.
Is that correct? So, and you can come up and speak and name and for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Carlos de la Torre. I'm the Director for Environmental Services. Yes, the department is initiating this request, and this is really in line with the policy directives that have been given to us by Mayor and Council on really instituting a lot of waste management initiatives that are more in line with the Plan Tucson, the Zero Waste Roadmap city has established, a climate action plan. So it's really just trying to prepared that piece of property or land in alignment with those plans and goals.
Okay. Could I ask a couple questions since I have you, and maybe your colleague can answer these? Why the change in the height? Was there a reason for that?
So the major request is really, we only see one asset within today in terms of really as a waste management asset, and really it really want to concentrate our efforts on really trying to maximize the overall capacity of that facility and really expand its useful life. And that was the reason why we suggested it's really looking at how can we prepare or provide for additional buffering around the facility, so that way it can really attenuate really that additional height restrictions for the landfill. So that's really the intent, is really just to maximize the resource. Our goal is, we identified one single spot where historically we have landfill in that area since the 1960s. It's right now the contemplated useful life of the landfill as it is since today is about 60 years. So if we look at expanding that useful life of the landfill, we're not really finding or having to find another location at this point in time for an additional facility. So that's really the ultimate goal. It's really just trying to increase its useful life, and certainly maybe down the road in a decade or so, we may have to look at another facility down the road, but it's really.
Could I just ask another question about the height? When you're talking about height, are you talking about like mound height or building height, or both of them could be there?
So most of it, part of it is mound height. Some of it is it's really building height, because some of the facilities that may be built in that facility may be beyond your traditional singles or double story buildings. So we're looking at potentially building a materials recovery facility in one of the areas. And so that's what those are either 2 or 3 stories high. And so we just want to make sure that we had the ability within the waste management footprint to be able to do that.
I noticed that you also had the methane flame in the grouping of the height. Could you explain that a little bit? I've read a little bit about methane flames, and they can be a nuisance in certain situations. In the report, it says that you're going to use innovative design, and I've also read that you can mitigate the impacts of methane flames. Is that kind of what you're doing?
Certainly. So there are 2 types of flare. Typically, there are 2 types of flares. The flare that's currently in operation out there is what is considered an open flare. It's almost considered to be a temporary flare. As essentially, as we move forward and start capturing additional gas, there's 2 options on how we deal with the methane gas. One is cleaning that landfill gas and using that as a source of energy. And we're working through that. If that program is not feasible, or from either from a technical or economic perspective, then we still, from a regulatory perspective, we have to pull all the landfill gas that the landfill generates for various reasons. It's really for the cap itself should not really allow for migration of methane gas. 1, 2, laterally, there should be no landfill gas that should exceed more than 5% concentration leaving the boundaries. So we have to pull the gas. If we do that, it will be more of a permanent flare. That flare typically has an internal combustion, and you really typically don't see the flare itself. So you may see the fumes of of burning the methane, but you really don't see the flare. So what catches a lot of attention for folks is you see an open flame. Right now, it's an open flame. So you look at it, it's a blue flame. You don't see it during the day, but you see an open flame at night. And so that sometimes they see that as a nuisance because you're seeing an open flame in the middle of the city.
Is this rethinking and updating of waste management or waste disposal? How do you address these concerns that some of the neighbors have brought up about odors and litter? Are those things that still need to be tolerated for a while, or are those things that can be mitigated sooner rather than later?
So there are immediate or ongoing mitigation strategies. So first of all is when we work in we have a working phase, daily working phase. So for us, it's really trying to deploy litter fences to make sure that those that try to reduce the amount of litter that leaves essentially the site. The other enforcement aspects of that is while we collect garbage, we ask residents really to bag their trash. So when it's put in the bin, in the truck, when it's transported, we minimize the amount of litter that is generated. So it's a twofold strategy there in terms of litter control. As it relates to odor control, during the summer months, when we typically deploy what we call a masking agent. That masking agent really allows to provide a different scent or different color, whether it's evergreen, whether it's pina colada or different flavors, really to mask those odors. But I think the most effective way of really to reducing odors is really make sure that at the end of the day, we either tarp essentially the area that we worked on, or we put the intermediate cover on that. So those are the mitigating measures that we put in place. We monitor that on a regular basis. We want to be a good neighbor. And so kind of the longer term solution of that is it's really creating the buffer around the landfill as a landscaping buffer and really creating an active recreation area. So if this facility is going to be there for the next 60 years and plus, we want to, by providing that buffer, it really provides the space, a space between the landfill activities and the neighboring properties.
Okay. Hope you don't mind. I feel like I'm taking the wind out of your sails. The ultimate goal is zero waste. When I first read that, I thought, how can that possibly be? But I guess that's a rethinking of how waste disposal is done from the beginning portion of the customer and to the commercial side of producing things to the end product being minimized and reused and several steps. Can you go through that a little bit?
Sure. So as you clearly pointed out, it's the notion is what a lot of folks think is zero waste is that we're not going to generate one that if waste is generated, that we're going to really capture the material and there's going to be zero waste that is going to be landfilled at that facility. So that's the ultimate goal, and that's why they call it the zero waste goal. Is really that is the case, but it is very difficult to achieve. Let's say and so it's really more of a strategic and philosophical approach as it relates to waste management, as you pointed out. So it's really about refusing to use certain materials. What do I mean by that is, and that's part of the zero waste initiatives, refusing to use a straw, refusing to use a styrofoam container, refusing to use a shopping bag, a single-use bag. So right is really rejecting the use of those materials, and we as consumers have the ability to do that. The other R's, so there's like 6 R's. I don't know if I remember all the R's, but there's about 6 R's. The other one is, first one is refuse, is reuse. Can we reuse some of the materials in a different manner? Okay. The other one is obviously recycling. The other one is repair. The other one is God, I can't think of all the R's. I should know by memory, but those are the various initiatives in terms of what comprises really the zero waste initiative.
Mm-hmm.
Reduce, refuse, repair, recycle, reuse, and also part of the reuse is composting a lot of that waste. So the idea behind that is from a local perspective is identifying what the waste stream looks like and really starting carving out different strategies and solutions to divert the waste and really find a beneficial use for that product. The challenge on that is really, even if we were to segregate certain material, pull it out from the waste stream, there has to be an end market for that. So there is a cost really to segregate the material, but there has to be an end market for that. So our goal is really what are the opportunities within the region really to obviously collect the waste, find ways on reducing the amount of waste that we generate, find ways on how we can reuse some of the waste, find ways on how we can recycle some of the waste, and find ways of where companies that are really aligned with those types of principles to co-locate at the landfill, at the campus, so that way they would have the space or the facility to essentially to operate and help us achieve those diversion goals. So for example, the city entered into an agreement with a company, very specialized company that that essentially uses what we call non-recyclable plastic, which is plastic film. We pull it out of the waste stream. This is the orange bags. They take the material, they compress it, and they generate a construction block. So that type of facilities that put function in programs, that's the goal and the intent of really helping us achieve the zero waste goals within the campus and for the city. That project's under construction, is scheduled to be completed within a year. And so that is one of the examples that it's currently going on, and obviously using the same strategy of identifying different companies really to divert the waste and find alternative ways for that material.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Did you want to say something, sir? Okay.
Rethink. Okay, is that the only one missing? Rethink. Okay.
Rethink.
So it's rethinking is like, yeah, rethinking is how do we use the materials that we currently purchase. So again, one of the examples would be is single-use plastic bottles. Let's rethink of how we drink water. Do we rely on the single-use plastics, or do we essentially use a reusable water bottle?
Well, I started thinking when I was reviewing this, well, what would they do? My cat kills mice, and I usually put them in the garbage. So would I still be putting them, or do I have to bury them?
No.
Or sometimes people throw rocks in their garbage can because they don't know where else to put them.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'll leave that up to you guys to figure those out. But I see what you're doing. You're trying to reduce the waste stream as much as you can to a point where there is no waste stream.
And the whole concept is, can we recover some of those materials?
Mm-hmm.
So instead of calling ourselves environmental services, we want to basically be known in the future as a recovering entity that recovers material, recover materials entity that you put in your cardboard, you put in your plastics. We set up the equipment and the machinery really to pull that sides, segregate it, and put that product into the market so it could be reused again, recycled again.
Well, thank you very much for your information. Could you give me your name one more time?
Sure.
This mic isn't really, a little bit hard to hear it. So
Carlos
Carlos?
de la Torre, DELATORRE.
And your title is?
Director of the city's Environmental Services Department.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bellator. With that, I'll ask the official applicant to come up and
Good evening, Mr. Mazzacco, and thanks for having us this evening. Since we've already kind of dived into it here, I'll do my best to just breeze through this and we can turn over any questions. But my name is Lexi Wellett. I am a principal at the Planning Center. We're located at 2 East Congress here in downtown. And I'm joined this evening by Carlos de la Torre and Frank Bonillas from the department there. And we're really excited to be a part of this project. Just wanted to run through and orient. I think you're familiar with where the site is, but for anyone watching or in the public, just to reorient us. So Los Reales landfill is located on the south side of Interstate 10 off of Craycroft Road, effectively between Swan Road and Craycroft, I guess. Surrounding the property, we've got a number of industrial facilities all surrounding the eastern. You can't see the laser on the TV there, so I apologize for that. But we've got a number of industrial facilities on the western and southern portions of the property. And then across Los Reales Road, we have an industrial park. All of those properties are zoned either I-1 or I-2. Which is what this pad is originally based off of. To the north of the northern boundary, we have some single-family residential projects that exist, and those were constructed in and around the time frame of 2006 to 2010. So I think the northern side, northwestern side of the
Can I ask a
subdivision.
question?
Yeah.
Those residential zones, are they original or where? I didn't see any indication that there was rezonings there. You know, Steph?
No.
So that may be original zoning as far as we know. Okay.
Exactly correct. Yeah. And so the residences to the north came into the picture sometime in the time frame of 2006, 2010, and then we have La Estancia basically across the Interstate 10, and then the Littletown subdivision on the other side of Interstate 10. And then we have a number of longstanding residents that have lived in and around the landfill and the Wilmont Farms and Greyhawk Ranch subdivisions. Those subdivisions were built in about 1998, 2002, somewhere in that
Those are
range.
the R1 subdivisions.
Yes.
What's the SH?
I have a zoning slide here. Let me just. So SH is all over here on the side to our right, and that's where the Greyhawk subdivision and Wilmont Farms. So let me jump back. And then the Blackhawk is also in the SH zone, and that utilized or that's R1 up there where Blackhawk is, and they used an FLD, flexible lot development project, to get the density in and
I can
around
just start.
space.
Comment or question if anybody knows the answer. So the Rincon Southeast Subregional Plan was originally a county document. The city adopted it as its own subregional plan, and that was around 1992. And one of the comments in the subregional plan was there is SH zoning nearby, but we do not expect it to be developed because it's next to a landfill. So we know that
Right.
was wishful thinking.
Right.
And so you're saying this all developed a few years after that statement was made at around 1998.
Exactly correct. Yes. And so that all of this, the Blackhawk, I'm going to jump back just because those names are on there. Blackhawk, Wilmont, or Greyhawk, and Wilmont Farms all came to be around in 1998, 2002 timeframe. And then Blackhawk is currently under construction or just nearing finishing construction. So those are relatively new homes. And all this is to say, you know, a lot of the residential in and around, to your point, as noted in the South region, Rincon Southeast subregional plan, is that this area, you know, the landfill was the prominent land feature out in this space. And so I'm going to skip the existing characteristics because I think we know what's out there, but I wanted to just dive into a little bit of the history because I think there is this, you know, this notion of the landfill is coming to folks, and I think it's in fact the opposite. It's a classic case of coming to the nuisance here for a lot of the claims that we've gotten related to expanding and what have you. But just to run through the history of the landfill, the landfill started as a borrow pit in the 1950s during the construction of Interstate 10. In 1960 timeframe, it opened and began operating. And the late 1990s, early 2000s, the city of Tucson found a need to devise a comprehensive waste management strategy to extend the landfill's operational life and to meet the demands of the growing city. At this time, public outreach regarding the future expansions occurred, and they started the process with the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality to get the necessary approvals for the landfill to be expanded. And that those improvements that or the expansion permits that ADEQ ultimately approved in 2005 is what led to the ultimate creation of the Los Reales PAD. Mayor and council adopted the Los Reales PAD in 2006, and it has been amended twice over between its inception and now, really to address evolving trends and best practices in waste management, to address the ever-changing needs of the community and really growth patterns, and how do we begin to manage a city that's drastically growing in and around this space. And so in 2020, as Mr. De La Torre noted in his presentation, what started this whole thought process of creating the Los Reales Sustainability Campus, it came out of the mayor and council's declaration for a climate emergency. In 2020, we recognize growing impacts of climate change. And so as part of the climate emergency declaration, mayor and council directed staff and various departments to develop a climate action plan. So as part of that climate action plan, a zero waste roadmap was created. Los Reales landfill was renamed to the Los Reales Sustainability Campus. And all of those things set forth the goals that we've already discussed, and how do we position the landfill as an asset and a cutting edge, innovative space for reuse and management waste management resources, et cetera. And so that's where we are today. In 2023, mayor and council adopted Tucson Resilient Together, and that's when we've started the process with environmental services to reimagine the Los Reales landfill.
So I guess what I'm hearing you saying is this isn't really an expansion of the concept of a traditional landfill that you're presenting. You're talking about a rethinking of how waste management is done.
There is some aspect of, as Mr. De La Torre mentioned, there, is a need to expand in some capacity. So it will expand in the areas that were already designated for expansion, large in part there.
So that's just part of the process of
Yeah.
phasing it into the zero waste concept, which is a goal that they set 25 years out into the future, 2050, I believe.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, you're still within some traditional ways of running a landfill until you have the whole concept starting to evolve.
Exactly
Is that
correct.
kind of what you're,
Yeah, and as new
Concept.
technologies emerge, et cetera.
Right.
Yep, exactly correct. So just to highlight through the goals, just really quickly, of the Los Reales Sustainability Campus, as Carlos noted, this is really a philosophy and a mindset and an aspiration of where the city is would like to head with this. And so the goals of Los Reales Sustainability Campus are to provide a physical catalyst to drive, support, and implement programs and initiatives established by the Declaration of Climate Emergency, Tucson Resilient Together, Plan Tucson, you name it, all of those plans and policy directives that have come since 2020 in response to the Declaration of Climate Emergency. In addition, the campus is aiming to provide physical infrastructure and physical infrastructure to foster, promote just and equitable collaboration in the area. We're looking to integrate cutting edge technology to manage and deal with waste management for generations to come. And really what this is looking at is how do we see waste management and the landfill as an asset in the community through the integration of, recreation, public community resource opportunities, education, et cetera. And I'll get to some of that here. And then again, maximize the economic opportunities. As Carlos mentioned, the Environmental Services Department has a shift to looking more towards resource recovery management as opposed to just a waste management provider here.
Could I
So,
ask,
yeah.
I don't want to mess up your presentation here, but one of the things I'd like to get to is the most sensitive part of this development to me is that northeast and eastern boundary of the landfill, which abuts these adjacent properties that you've gone through the history of how they've developed. What is the plan to address that? If you could spell that out and show what it looks like on a map.
Yeah. So basically, in looking at the areas to answer your question, how we're going to ensure compatibility with the residential neighborhoods north and to the east of us. As Mr. De La Torre noted, part of the amendment here is to internalize the buffering spaces, and so to ensure that we are providing not only noise, dust, smell abatement, but also a screening. We've increased the buffer on the eastern portion of the property. Previously, it was about 100 feet wide, and we've increased that to a 480-foot wide buffer that will remain natural up until, I can't really point, but where you see the road come out, largely adjacent to the Blackhawk subdivision that's currently under construction. That space, the buffer it's 50 feet is what we've suggested there. But the idea in this space, and I'll jump, is that all in that area is supposed to be a recreational amenity. And this is something that is for our purposes, it's conceptual, and how we begin to program space and look at, how do we create and transition this into a recreational and community asset. So our team created some renderings just to showcase what a concept could be for a park. And this is what we're working towards moving forward. However, this will not be Environmental Services Department doing that. It'll be the City of Tucson Park and Recreation Department doing that. And so as part of that process, they will hold public outreach and go through the whole gamut, just like we are, to get the community's information on that.
So once again, what you're showing is a concept here, but does this concept mean this is the location of this area, or that area could change around in where the buffer is?
So that's the location. So what you're seeing in green on your screen is exactly that band where the park is, on just south of Gardenstone Road there.
Okay.
The park basically fits right in that
So it's
green
not-
space.
It's not creating a buffer with the residential properties. It's a little bit northwest of the residential properties?
Yeah, so it'll be, so the green,
Okay.
okay, so the yellow area on this map here is representing where the waste reclamation activities are. This is where all landfill operations will be limited to. The areas shown in green are where we are designating as open space or recreation facilities. So on the northern half adjacent to Blackhawk, so on the northern component there, where that green strip runs in the east-west direction, give or take, that's where the park will be. And why we've left it as the green open space as opposed to making it a part of the waste management reclamation is because in the open space designation, we have prohibited any type of waste. It can only be open space or recreation facilities. And that. As far as the residents on the north side and this northern area, our intention for the spaces just north of Los Reales Road is what we refer to as a community resources activity area. In this area, building heights are limited. We've written that into the code. or into the pad. And so in these spaces, building heights will be limited to 30 feet. That's a decrease in 10 feet from what was previously allowed in the pad. And in this space, the conceptual idea for this is that we would have some educational space to invite the community in to do workshops on the best practices of waste management, or train folks on composting, et cetera. So in that orange area, it's intended to be more of a community facilities. We've integrated building setbacks appropriately. So it's a building setback that's 1.5 times the building height. So that's pretty generous. And then we're also anticipating on doing landscaping, et cetera, along that border. In addition to some educational space, the mayor currently has an initiative to plant 1 million trees. And so currently a component of the landfill is being used as a nursery. And so if drainage permits for it, that nursery will be moved up on the northern end, on the north end of Los Reales Road, because we feel like that's a good compatible use to create a buffer between the residences and the landfill operation. And then the area in the eco-commerce activity area, that's an area where we envision more of those uses that can coexist within the landfill. So one thing that comes to my mind as an example is that might be a compatible user here is like a Habitat for Humanity Habistore, where folks can drop off stuff, and you can create a market before the waste goes to the landfill there. So in that space, that has also been limited to a 30-foot building height as well. So I don't know if that answers your question.
That's fine. Yeah.
Okay. So I think we've kind of jumped all over the place, so I don't know where you want me to start or stop, but I think at this point, just to reiterate what has changed in the pad, it's
That would be a good place to just sum up.
yeah. So to reiterate, what we've changed is we've largely updated the provisions within the document to reflect the current development standards. The PAD was originally adopted in 2006, and it use code. And so part of this update was bringing everything to reference the appropriate sections in the UDC. We updated all of the constraints, site analysis, you name it, to reflect current conditions and things that are out there, so that this is a more accurate depiction of what's going on. And then in addition to the development standards specifically, we've changed the maximum height in the sustainability campus, as Mr. Beal noted, to align with the underlying zoning and some of the other activities that are already occurring on the site. We've decreased the allowable building heights in the open space district. And so when I say allowable building heights there, it'd be like a concession stand or something like that, associated with the parks or what have you. So those originally, the open space would allow you to go to 40 feet, and we've decreased that to 30 feet to be consistent with the community resources, spaces, et cetera. We've also established minimum perimeter yards, so setbacks adjacent to the R1 zones, and those are a minimum of 480 feet there. And then we've created landscape borders and screening standards to better align the UDC. We've included provisions that will allow for trails to be incorporated within the open space and landscape border. Previously, that was not allowed and permitted in the PAD. We've updated the drainage improvements within the document to reflect what is going on out there today, as well as capital improvements that are currently underway. We've updated motor vehicle parking standards. We removed the visual mitigation standards of it. And I want to speak to that previously a little bit, because previously in the PAD, it suggested in 2006 that, there's going to be some plants planted and trees and vegetation, and 30 inches of topsoil would have to be imported in to make the vegetation viable on the side of the landfill. And what we've seen, portions of the landfill have been capped in, and simple You know, I'm blanking on the word, but just the, what, I don't know what it is, but just when, not the, yeah, it's been limited. The revegetation on the hill has been limited. And so in looking at how natural revegetation has occurred, and the cost and expense of bringing imported fill in onto the site, we figured it would be a better solution to give the neighbors a larger buffer and provide that natural screening, as opposed to try and incur additional cost to replant something that isn't really taking at this point in time. So that's why we remove those. That said, vegetation will be installed to mitigate, as necessary. And then we've also modified the implementation administrative section to provide some more avenues for administrative amendments as things come to be. So that's, in a nutshell, what has changed, and I welcome any additional questions.
Well, thank you for your presentation. That was really a lot
Thank you.
and very well presented. With that, does anybody else want to speak or add anything? John, nothing? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody in the audience come forward. So with that, as I said at the beginning, after I close the public hearing, I will prepare a preliminary report. It will be done within 5 days and available to the public. So unless there is anything else, and I don't see it, the time is 6:46 p.m. and this public hearing is closed. Thank you all for coming.